Hello everyone and welcome back once again to X's and O's. I'm Jay Lennander.
And I'm Eric Bunnell.
And we're going to be talking about all sorts of sports today, as we do every week on Tuesdays. And today specifically we'll be talking about NDSU Football. They had a big game against Delaware on Saturday. Obviously sort of talking about this game, it had very similar undertones to the North Alabama win and the Cal Poly win that came about the past 2 weeks. However, it was a little bit different in terms of tone, as it was a much more dominating victory, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would definitely say that. And coming into the game, I was like, people were asking, what do you think the score is going to be at halftime? Do you think students are going to leave early? It's like, it's going to be a 14-7 game. All of a sudden, NDSU just marches right down the field and punches them right in the mouth, and it's 7-0, and then you get down to the other end, and it's 14-0 because Jabril Cox takes another pick six to the house.
Yeah, and you can't understate those first couple minutes of the game, those first two drives. On the first drive, the Bison took it all the way down, a classic Bison drive, grinding. Desmond Kane actually came up limping early on in the drive on the second play, and he came back with a big, I believe, 39-yard reception to put them into the red zone. It was a classic Bison drive. They went all the way down, and the very first play from scrimmage for Delaware, Jabril Cox gets an interception. Delaware's coach following the game was quoted saying, if you study the game of football, you wouldn't wish that on your worst enemy. So we really saw Delaware get, as you said, punched in the mouth really early. And that's something that the Bison didn't do against North Alabama. There was plenty of punts here and there. So how do you think that early start that they got against Delaware is going to impact their preparation moving forward? Do you think that they're going to be expecting these sort of or that they've got the formula figured out, that they're going to be expecting sort of early scores again, or is this just a one-time flash in the pan?
I mean, if you're NDSU, you play in South Dakota State next week, like you just said, you got to expect these starts all the time. You can't expect a pick six all the time. But if your defense can force a 4-and-out on a first drive to a team that's averaging 719 yards a game, your defense is going to be pretty good. That offense, they got to be able to sustain drives no matter what. You got to be able to go, even if you don't score, take 6 minutes off the clock. That limits the ball in everybody's hands, and you're going to be able to control time and possession. And that's exactly what the Bison did. And to me, that drive kind of just shocked me. I thought it was going to be Delaware. A lot of people picked them to go second in the CAA behind James Madison, and James Madison's a very good team. And now NDSU's got kind of a cornerstone or a place to see how they rank up against JMU this year for when Delaware and JMU play each other later on in the year.
And another big takeaway from this game was that we saw a lot of Bison leadership. Their big players made a lot of big plays on both sides of the ball. Obviously, Jabril Cox with the interception makes him the first player since 1967 to have back-to-back games with pick sixes for the Bison. And Easton Stick, 4 total touchdowns. It was a really huge performance from him. And what do you think for Bison individual performances? Do you think these same players like Stick and Cox are going to be, and Desmond Kane as their top receiver, that those are going to be the players we see really leading the pack moving forward? And Greg Menard as well, putting himself at 5th all-time on the sacks list. Do you think this is kind of the core that we're going to see sort of lead them this year? Or are there other players who have really yet to show up who you think need to step up?
I feel like there are other players that haven't shown potential, like a Dallas Freeman, a Darius Shepard, Dan Marlette, Blake Williams, Aaron Slatel, Big Cole Karch, even in the middle. I feel like those guys are going to step up. But a tradition that I've known for NDSU, and I don't know if you've seen this either, thanks to Ryan Peralt for pointing this out to us, whoever's been on the cover of the game day issue for the media players, they've always had a big game. Bruce Anderson, first game of the year. Almost 200 yards rushing. Robbie Grimsley, 11 tackles, team high. Easton Stick, 17-26 for 280 yards. Are we going to see that tradition continue this week? I know NDSU is opening up as a big 11-point favorite right now, according to 5 Dimes, but I got to take the under on that one.
Well, it kind of depends on who's on the cover, I guess. I mean, it's sort of like a reverse Madden curse, is that whoever's on the cover of the program has the big day.
It's just weird how that stuff works to me. I mean, I would have never known that had it not been pointed out to me.
But obviously Delaware, it's just a precursor to the game that everyone's been looking forward to since the schedule came out, the game that everyone who follows the Missouri Valley Conference looks forward to every time the year comes around, as NDSU versus SDSU is going to be happening not next week, this Saturday. So it's coming up, and really one thing that we haven't seen yet from the Bison, we talked about this last week on X's and O's, is that we haven't seen really a good game in this set of games that has been played in the Fargo Dome. And obviously with SDSU, you'd expect a little bit more firepower. However, everyone's talking about the fact that they've lost some of their biggest weapons. Jake Weineke was on the Vikings practice squad, played with them in the spring games, and obviously Dallas Goedert caught his first touchdown catch from Carson Wentz on this Sunday. So how do you think that SDSU, one, is going to come out against this Bison team that's really been rolling over opponents? Do you think, because Goddard and Weineke were huge parts of why SDSU has been able to have the leg up on NDSU and keep up every time they've been playing them since the past couple years? Do you think it changes anything?
I don't think it's going to change anything because Christian still got his running back there. Mangarelli, I believe, is still back there. He's got that fast wide receiver in Christian Rosendale. He's going to replace Jake Weineke. I don't think nothing changes. They put up 90 points on Arkansas Pine Bluff. Yeah, I understand. It's Arkansas Pine Bluff. They put up 49 on Montana State, who many projected is going to be a playoff team. It's going to be a dogfight this weekend. I expect a low scoring, even though SDSU's got that high-powered offense, I expect a low-scoring game in the Dome back to like 2016 where it's going to come down to that last second play.
It is absolutely possible. One turn that we sort of saw for this Bison offense against Delaware was that it was really the passing attack that led them against Delaware. So in terms of being able to prevent it from being a low-scoring game, because obviously there were some people who were saying, oh, Delaware is probably going to be a low-scoring game. It's the two of the top defenses in the FCS. But obviously that didn't happen, mainly because of that quick start. But in terms of this projection, do you think that the passing attack remains strong for the Bison coming against SDSU in order to sort of combat their passing attack with Christensen? Or do you think that Bruce Anderson and Lance Dunn are going to be able to fire it up in this big game?
I think those two are going to be able to fire it up. I know Lance didn't get an opportunity to play in this game last year because he went out the previous game in Northern Iowa with a torn labrum. Seth Wilson had to come in, back up. True freshman coming into the game. One of the biggest game to that point of the year for the Bison. I think those two are hungry to play. They're a bunch of South Dakota kids on this team. They're ready to roll. They want to beat this. They want to beat this team. They get more energy, and Coach Kleiman alluded to his press conference. They get more energy, and the more they want to go out and beat them. But it's unique because this is the first time NDSU and SDSU have opened a Valley play against each other, and it's 1 versus 3. This is the FCS matchup of the year, outside of the national championship game. There's going to be so many eyes on this game. I expect those stands to be absolutely packed.
Oh yeah,
standing room only, and I just think NDSU is going to finally get that marker back after 2 years.
Yeah, it has been a while, which sort of brings up the next point. As you said, it is a huge game. It is probably, like you said, the biggest outside of the playoffs game in not only the Missouri Valley Conference, but very likely the FCS.
If Ohio State is not playing Penn State this week, I bet you College Game Day is this week, because Stanford, Notre Dame, you can get those guys. You can get those guys anywhere. Why wouldn't you want to come to the top FCS game of the year?
Well, it is a massive game and obviously a rivalry that has tons of history. But as you said, it's been 2 years since Fargo has held the Dakota marker. And the big question is, with this game being so important, what happens to the way the Bison prepare and the way things move forward if they do lose to Taryn Christensen and that high-powered offense? How do you think their sort of game plan changes, other ways they try to switch it up, or do you think they still remain the course even if they end up losing this game? Because it would be a huge momentum killer to lose the biggest game of the year outside of the playoffs, and it's also very likely that SDSU and NDSU could find themselves matched up again in the playoffs. So how does this really change their mental stat if they do end up losing?
I don't think it changes them at all. The Bison are going to remain on course. They still know that there's 7 weeks left, 7 one-week seasons left in the Valley. Yes, South Dakota State's coming off a bye week. They're probably a little fresher than the Bison, but no team has played a complete game. We can't even get the basis of, how'd they look when they played a full game, because by most of these games, the starters were out at halftime because you don't want to risk injury, and you got these true freshmen like Trey Lance. You got backups in, Holden Hotchkiss. You got guys who aren't really playing as much in the game. So, NDSU only put up 3 points in the second half last week against Delaware. But with your backups, I mean, that Delaware team was pretty stout in the second half because they finally figured out NDSU. But I just don't think it's going to change anything because, as NDSU knows, any team can be beaten on any given week in the Valley. And when they lost to South Dakota State 2 years ago, South Dakota State went and got beat by somebody else. It just, who knows what's going to happen. But their game plan is not going to change. You're not going to change because you have one loss. You don't see the Minnesota Vikings completely tearing apart their offense because they couldn't get it going. I mean, nothing's going to change. It's just the players I feel like are going to be more focused is going to put them on that run to get going toward the playoff and go win that 7th national championship.
And obviously this is all purely speculative,
Yeah.
as the game will be happening on Saturday. That's really what counts in the end. Is there anything else you think that we should address here before, we sort of let it ride? Because obviously you can only talk so much about a game that hasn't happened yet because the game will sort of prove itself. Is there anything else you think is really worthy of noting going into this game?
I mean, SDSU's put up 719 yards of offense. They got a high-powered offense. They got a spread. And the Bison have seen it before with North Alabama. The Bison have seen it with Delaware. They've seen the spread offense the past 2 weeks. So you're not if I'm the Bison, I'm not really concerned about going up against the spread offense because you've shown that you can take them down. Sam Houston State last year, 55-13. The crowd gets behind the Bison, and that Jackrabbit O-line. I mean, there's a lot of returners on that team. Don't get me wrong. They're good. There are some inexperienced players on that team. Crowd gets loud, hard to hear in the dome. You kind of got to go to that clap count where your quarterback just claps his hands. I just don't see anything that's going to prevent the Bison from winning this game unless the only thing that's going to prevent them from losing the game is a turnover battle. They have to win. You have to win the turnover battle. That and special teams. If you can flip the field, if Garrett Wagner can flip the field on South Dakota State from being pinned inside your own 20 to them in South Dakota State being pinned inside their own 20, it's going to be I think it's going to be the first who's going to score 20.
Could be.
Top 10 defenses in the country.
We've seen the student section start to clear out a little bit at halftime these past couple games. You think that's the case on Saturday? If
I'm the student and if I leave at halftime of this game, I'm ashamed of myself. This is the biggest game of the year. This is the one game. NDSU could obviously they want to win every other game. But if they win this game, they're happy because they get the marker back. This is the rival game. Both teams made the jump to D1 at the same time. This is the game you have to win on your schedule. It's circled on everybody's schedule. You hear everybody talking about it. Coach Kleiman even alluded to it in his press conference that he wants that crowd to be loud and as loud as possible for this game. It's kind of got that feel like Sam Houston State did last year, or JMU, where in the national championship game, it's like, are we going to win? Are we going to lose? Or what's going to happen? Like, what's it going to come down to? But they can't have a game like they did last year with 5 turnovers and give up, I think, 40 points they gave up?
Something like that.
It was bad. They just played a bad game last year. But even talking about last year, they have to go back to previous years to look at the tape, what they haven't done. And he said even if they fall behind early, 10-0, like they did in the playoffs, he's going to don't stress it because they came back and won that game 36-10.
Well, all eyes are going to be on the Fargo Dome on Saturday, and we're going to want you to keep your eyes right here because we'll be back right after this break talking about Tiger Woods' feats in the PGA and also a little bit about the MLB playoffs. NDSU's campus, Herdin' Horns is the place to go, whether you're looking for a fantastic meal or just a quick bite to eat.
Hi, welcome to Herdin' Horns. Are you from the Drink Hideaway?
With friendly staff and excellent service, it's a restaurant for all ages. Herdin' Horns, your home for great food and Bison sports. Welcome to Bison Block. If you are an NDSU student, you know it well. It's located right across the street from campus. How would you like to live in the same building as Starbucks, Jimmy John's, and Herd and Horns? Bison Block offers high-quality apartments at a very affordable price. For more information, go to our website at bisonblockfargo.com to apply today.
Well, welcome back, everyone, and now we're here to talk about the amazing accomplishment that Tiger Woods did over the past weekend. And Jay, it took him 5 years to win a championship, but this whole year you just had that feeling. He was hanging in there. He could just never get it done. What did you see on Sunday that he was finally able to get that first PGA Tour win?
Well, I mean, it was just consistency across the board. Obviously, this entire year he's been playing great. I mean, that's what made everyone talk about him again. Tiger Woods, it's a huge name, so of course he's going to come up even if he's last place in the tournament. Mm-hmm. But the fact that he's healthy again, he was playing consistently, he was getting up there, he was staying in it in tournaments, because when he was hurt and still rehabbing and still having to work things back, obviously you would probably see him lower down the line, because I mean he was obviously playing through some pain at points, and it just didn't really pan out, obviously because he wasn't at 100%. But this year we've seen that the injury problems seem to be gone, that he's back to at least playing golf healthy, and now with what I saw this weekend, it's not that he's just playing healthy, but he's starting to get back to playing at a high level. All of the big injury concerns, which were a problem for him for a long time, it's a very big contributor to why he struggled for so long, was because of all of these injuries that he's had. But on Saturday and Sunday and through this weekend, I think what we saw was that the injuries are a thing of the past. He's able to just play golf now, and not only just play golf, because obviously being injured also impacts practice and whatnot. He's able to play, and because he's been able to play consistency, we're starting to see that magic that was already there. So the biggest thing about this weekend, the biggest reason of why he was able to come out now, is I think the injury concerns not only are a thing of the past in terms of the actual injuries, but I think he's played in enough tournaments this year consistently that he's starting to be able to get back into a groove and actually play golf without it even in his subconscious. He's back to just not even thinking about injuries. He's just playing golf again, and I think that's really what contributed to the win this weekend, is that he can just play golf again. And obviously when everything else is out of the way, Tiger Woods is one of the best golfers of all time. Now that everything not off the court, but off the golf course.
Off the course.
Off the course is now gone. We're back to seeing him back to where he was. Just that natural talent is coming out, and it would not be a really strong statement to say that this could probably continue now in the PGA.
And he almost won the FedEx.
Mm-hmm.
That's an overlooking factor. He was 20th coming into this weekend, and he had everything fall right.
Yep.
Except for Justin Rose making the birdie on 18. Other than that, he had everything fall right. I know I was sitting there at home when Rose was putting for birdie. I was like, or he's putting for eagle, sorry. I was like, blow this by the hole, like 10 feet by the hole, and then make that tough birdie putt. Because if he would have made the tough birdie putt, then I'd be like, okay, he deserves to win. But if he could have got par on 18, I'd have been like just happy, because Tiger not only came back, hung around, he would have won the FedEx and the last major of the year. That would just been an amazing accomplishment in itself. And now he goes to the Ryder Cup this weekend in Ireland. And I don't know, I just feel like he's back. And he opens as a 9-1 favorite to win the 2019 Masters. And the young guys have always been waiting, saying like, hey, where's the old Tiger? Well, he's back, and now he's ready to contend. He's ready to go after that 18 major record set by Jack Nicklaus. And he's only 2 wins away on the tour from tying Sam Snead. He needs 3 to break it and become solo number 1. So my question to you is, does he break the record of 8? Does he get more than 18 majors, and can he get those next 3 wins this coming year?
Well, I mean, I think the reports are kind of saying that it's almost a foregone conclusion at this point. I think it's a little bit early to say, oh, yeah, for sure it's going to happen because he just won once. Obviously, this weekend is going to be a huge – if he comes out and wins this weekend, then it's like, okay, you really need to start talking about he's back to the absolute elite level, and there's no doubt about it. But, I mean, it's not that I think that he's going to do it eventually. But most people, for the question is, how long does it take him? Because a lot of people are saying that, oh yeah, he's going to break the record by the time he's 50. And if that this weekend wasn't just a one-time deal, and it's not just him at the FedEx and at other tournaments this year where he just hangs around and everyone's watching because, oh, could he do it? But he actually proves that he can keep finishing, then there's no doubt eventually it'll happen.
Did you see the crowd behind him on 18?
Oh, yeah.
Because they had to have security guards.
Well, no doubt.
On both sides of him because people were crowding him.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. There was, 5,000 people there?
Something like that.
I mean, there was a ton of people following him on the 18th green, to the 18th green.
Yeah, and his name is huge. He's still one of the best athletes, one of the biggest named athletes in the entire world in any sport, because he was the guy for so long. In his prime, when he was through that chunk of the decades,
2010.
Yeah, like a whole decade, he was the guy. His name rose up above everyone else, and it's still that way. That doesn't go away in a night. If LeBron James were injured and didn't play for the next 4 years and then finally came back, people would still be talking about him every single day on the news. It's that same kind of deal, and because it's golf and because there aren't any names that are even as big right now or were as big as his, he stands out even much more because golf, it's different than saying, oh yeah, there's LeBron James, but there's also Kevin Durant and that there's debates. Now, Tiger's only chasing people who are long past retired. It's just him and, say, the legends, but he is the only one right now, and it's just debate as to whether he's the best or not. And I think it's almost within a shadow of a doubt that he's gonna break that record. It's gonna happen.
Not to mention that $9 million match he's got coming up with Phil Mickelson. But that's a story for another day because we could probably go on and on about that.
Pay-per-view.
Pay-per-view. I mean, it's only $20 though, but
but pay-per-view.
We'll save that story for another day. For now, let's transition to baseball. 1 week, less than a week, 5 games for some teams, 6 for some other teams left in the regular season. And the AL, it's wrapped up. It's done. It's a foregone conclusion. We just don't know where the wild card game will be played. Mm-hmm. The NL, whole different story. Mm-hmm. There's 5 teams vying for that NL wild card.
Yep, it's crazy.
Okay, you take out the Cubs and the Dodgers right now. Mm-hmm. There's 3, but the Cubs are only a game and a half ahead of the Brewers.
Yeah, it's anyone's race in the NL Central.
Dodgers are a game and a half ahead of the Rockies. Mm-hmm. And looking at the Cubs schedule, they got the Pirates. And they have, their top 4 pitchers pitching this week. Mm-hmm. And then the Cardinals. The red-hot Cardinals who are fighting for a playoff spot. Mm-hmm. And the Brewers got the Cardinals tonight and tomorrow. Tomorrow night's on ESPN at 6 o'clock. And then they have Thursday off. And then they take on the Tigers at home. Mm-hmm. Can the Brewers catch the Cubs?
I think the biggest factor is, like you said, the pitching right now. The Cubs...
Is it pitching or is it offense? Because that Cubs offense has struggled at times this year. And Javi Baez even came out and said, we don't want to face the Brewers in the playoffs because they've had our number.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's kind of different as to, the race up until the playoffs, is that with the Cubs pitching staff, I think they're set up in a very good spot to have the pitchers they need to have going, pitching throughout the rest of the time. And it's a little weird because I believe Addison Russell, he's still on probation, suspension, or whatnot.
He's
right
on
now. Indefinitely.
Yeah, he's on paid leave or something like that. I don't know. It's something weird.
Which in terms of their offense is definitely going to hurt them. I think if we're talking about a head-to-head matchup, that's a whole different story. I think the Brewers come much closer then. But in terms of the Cubs with the momentum they've had lately, it's hard, and especially because they've got a little bit of a lead on the Brewers right now. It's hard for me to really bet against the Cubs at this point in terms of the NL Central. And, I mean, the Cardinals are still there, but that's more probably in the wild card.
They're probably going to be locked in as a wild card coming up.
But in terms of the Cubs and the Brewers racing right now, I think the fact that the Cubs have the lead is a huge deal. In that's just extra ground that the Brewers have to make up. It is the Cubs' race to lose, and that they have to absolutely collapse kind of in order for the Brewers to pass them.
I wouldn't even say they have I can see where you're coming from, but I wouldn't even say the Cubs would have to absolutely collapse.
Well, yeah.
If the Brewers can win tonight, if they take the series 2-1, let's say the Cubs lose tonight and lose tomorrow. The Brewers lose tomorrow. Just throwing out numbers. They're only a game back.
Yeah.
Or half a game back. Sorry. The Cubs play on Thursday. They lose that game.
Yeah.
They're tied. And now you look at the series, the weekend series. The Brewers got the Tigers, and the Cubs got the Cardinals, who are fighting for a playoff spot.
Yeah.
I think that matchup, that would be the best scenario. Honestly, I think if they're tied going into the weekend and you just tie, nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do about it. But if it's tied at the end of the year, it goes into an extra game. It goes to game 163 on Monday.
Yeah, and really, like you said, it comes down. I think the more important games are the ones right now, like the next couple days.
You just got for each team, you just got to take it one day at a time.
Yeah, because if you're looking to this last series, obviously the Tigers versus the Cardinals, that's obviously in the Brewers' favor. The Tigers have had a rough season this year, and the Cardinals are the Cubs' rival. There's a lot of history there.
There's a lot of hatred
there's going to be a lot of animosity, to your point. So if you're coming down to just those series, obviously you take the Brewers at that point. But I want to see the Cubs lose these next couple games before I'm willing to say, okay,
before you're willing
this
to
is
say
going to get interesting. And then even then, the Tigers, even though they're out of it, teams that are sort of down the rank don't want to just lie down flat for these teams that are, if they can potentially knock someone out of the playoffs, it can boost their morale moving forward. It's like, oh, we had a horrible season, but hey, we kept the Brewers out at the last second or whatnot, But the fact that the Cubs and the Cardinals are playing also plays to the Brewers' favor. Like there's no way they don't make the playoffs, basically, because it's like, okay, the Cubs and the Cardinals, they're either the Cardinals win and then the Brewers are probably gonna do it, or the Cubs win and then the Brewers kind of just stay where they are right now. So all of this at the end of the day plays into the Brewers' favor, but it's just a matter if they want that NL Central, the cards are gonna have to fall just right.
Yeah. Before we take off and we conclude our show. Give me your NL MVP. Because right now I think it's a 2-horse race. And you already know who one of my players is.
Yeah, I've got a good guess.
Christian Yelich is having an outstanding post-All-Star break. Yeah. He didn't.
He's been having a pretty good year altogether.
He's batting second, and he almost has 100 RBIs. How many people do you say have second? He's leading the NL in batting average. The Brewers got two of the top three, him and Kane, behind Scooter Gennett. Scooter Gennett's former Brewer, so I guess kind of lay claim to that. But and then Javi Baez. It's a 2-horse race. Who do you take in that one?
You know what it could come down to is who wins the NL Central. Because those players are going to be big in these next couple games, and say the Brewers overtake them and Yelich hits a home run a game, you can't really argue against him, honestly.
He's hit for 2 cycles this year.
Yeah.
In 20 days. How do you not take it? How is he not the foregone conclusion for NL MVP? If he doesn't win, I'm riding the MLB, because that's not he should just win that.
Well, it's definitely possible, and it's always interesting in the major leagues, especially once the playoffs come, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that more on X's and O's. So come back every Tuesday. We'll be talking about sports right here. I'm Jay Lennander.
And I'm Eric Bunnell.
And we'll see you next week.